Questionary of Social Geography Block the second. What is intersex? People who are born with sex characteristics that do not fit typical binary notions of male or female bodies. What is sex? A biological category that distinguishes between females and males. What are the primary sex characteristics? Show is the sex organs involved with the reproductive processes in which develop in utero. What are the secondary sex characteristics? Develop at puberty and are not directly involved in reproductive thing like public hair, enlarged breasts or facial hair. What is Klinefelter syndrome? Is a syndrome which creates chromosomes XX and Y. What is triple X syndrome? Is a syndrome which results in triple X chromosomes. What is gender identity? Refers to a person's internal, deeply held sense of their gender. What is gender? The set of social and psychological characteristics that a society considers proper for its males and females. What are transgendered people? Those whose gender identity doesn't match the biological sex they were assigned at birth. What are cisgender people? Those whose gender identity corresponds to their sex assigned at birth. What is sexuality? Shorthand for everything related to sexual behavior. What are those sexual behaviors? Sexual acts, desire, arousal, the experience that is deemed sexual. What is heterosexual? Attraction to people of the other people. What is homosexual? Attraction to people of own gender. What is asexual? Is when you don't experience sexual attraction at all. What is pansexual? Attraction to people regardless of their sex or gender. What is bisexual? Attraction to both men and women, or to more than one sex or gender. What is symbolic interactionism? Is a theory that assumes sexuality is socially constructed. What are sexual scripts? Are cultural prescriptions that dictate the when, where, how, and with whom of sex, and what that sex means when it happens. What is structural functionalism? Theory that assumes sex is to be organized, in order for society to function. What is social conflict? Theory that assumes regulating sexuality is also a matter of creating and reinforcing inequalities. What is heteronormativity? Idea that there are only two genders, that gender corresponds to biological sex, and that the only natural and acceptable sexual attraction is between these two genders or sexes which are opposite and that naturally fit together. How heterosexuality is defined? By dominant sexual scripts, privileged by law and normalized by social practices such like religious teachings. What is queer theory? Theory that shows how gender and heterosexuality are tied together. What is gender stratification? The unequal distribution of wealth, power, and privileges across genders. What is patriarchy? A form of social organization in which men have more power and dominate others' genders. What are patriarchal dividends? The advantages to men as a group for maintaining an unequal gender order. What is anticipatory socialization? Is the process of charging one's attitudes and behaviors in preparation for a shift in one's role. What is second shift? The household and childcare duties that follow the day's work for pay outside the home. What are emphasized feminities? Are forms of femininity that conforms to what the ideal female is in men's eyes. What is Title IX? Is a law passed in 1972 prohibits discrimination on the basis of the sex in public schools. Why Title IX was developed? To eradicate discrimination in higher education, such as enrollment quotas, or refusing to. What are pink-collar jobs? Are jobs with the highest concentrations of women tend to come with both lower prestige and lower pay. What is the glass ceiling? The invisible barrier that stops women's advancement to the top levels of an organization. What is gender wage/pay gap? Is the average difference in men's and women's earning. What is gender socialization? Is the average difference in men's and women's earning. What is benevolent sexism? Is a subtler form of sexism that is expressed by emphasizing men's role to protect and provide for women by putting them on a pedestal in a chivalrous way. What is political geography? Is the study of the relationship between people, political units, and territory at various scales. What is supranational scale? Is the study of organizations that include many countries such as the European Union. What is country scale? Is the way a country's government is organized and interacts with its people. What is local scale? Is the study of the way a country geographically distributes power to its people, such as establishing voting districts. What is territoriality? Is the effort to control pieces of the Earth's surface for personal, political, or social ends. What are examples of territoriality? Personal space, areas we claim as our own psychological territory. Owned space, areas we claim as our territory because of personal ownership. Political space, areas we claim as our territory because of political ownership. What do governments need to control territory? Sovereignty, the power that a government has to control its own territory. Legitimacy, recognition by other countries of the power a country has to control its own territory. What is a state? Is a political unit with a permanent population, sovereign territory, legitimacy by other states, and an effective government and working economy. What a nation? It is a cultural entity, consisting of a group of people who see themselves as part of a community sharing a common way of life and a political destiny. What is a multinational state? Is a state that includes more than one nation within its borders. What is the nation-state? Is a state with primarily only one nation within its borders. What is the stateless nation? Is a nation that has no territory of its own but should. What is a buffer state? Is a state located between two large or conflicting countries. What is a satellite state? Is a state that is formally independent but under heavy military, economic, and political control by another. What are shattered bolts? States are groups of states that are influenced by other larger competing states. They are often culturally, economically and politically fragmented. What is politics? An activity that deliberately aims at changing for resisting changes to how society is organized. What is territorial sovereignty? Is a principle that gives one government total control of a given area of land and the people that live on it. What are borderlands? Are areas of separation between the two states on either side that are often sustained by the movement of people and commerce across the boundary. What is a political boundary? Is an imaginary line separating one political unit, such as a country or state, from another. What are centripetal and centrifugal forces? Centripetal forces, forces that unify states. Centrifugal forces, forces that fragment states. What is colonialism? Is the practice of establishing political dominance over a people outside of your state for economic, political, and territorial gain. What is imperialism? Is the policy of extending a country's influence through diplomacy or military force to areas already developed by an indigenous society. How does a state deal with strong centrifugal forces? Devolution is when states transfer power from the central government to different regions of the country. For example, Mikhail Gorbachev, the last leader of the Soviet Union, ceded power from the USSR to individual states such as Latvia, the Ukraine, and others. What dependency theory argues? Theory that emphasizes the reason that many periphery countries are poor is that they have become dependent on the powers that colonize them. What is race? A categorization of human based on skin color and other physical characteristics. Racial categories are social and political constructions because they are biased on ideas that some biological differences are more important than others. What is racism? A belief that your race is superior to others. How are racial categories typically imposed on people? Residential segregation, Milwaukee, Detroit. Racialized divisions of labor. Racial categories defined by governments. What is ethnicity? A constructed identity that is tied to a place. It is often considered natural because it implies ancient relations among people over time. What is sense of place? A unique collection of qualities and characteristics, visual, cultural, social, and environmental, that provide meaning to a location. What is an ethnic group? A group that has a shared cultural heritage. What is a Hispanic? Those whose heritage originated in a Spanish-speaking country. What is a Latino-Americano? Someone whose heritage originates from nations in the Americas that are south of the United States, including Mexico, all of South America, and the Caribbean. What is a minority? Any category of people who are distinguished by physical or cultural difference that a society sets apart and subordinates. What are the characteristics of minority? Share a distinctive identity based on physical or cultural traits. Occupy a lower status in society and have less access to the levers of societal power. How can we define conflict and war? As conflicts inflicting over 1,000 battle deaths in the year. What are the causes of conflict? Land disputes, politics, religious and cultural differences in the distribution and use of resources. What is the impact of conflict on geography? Human aspects of